5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hello, everybody. I'm Dear Myrtle, your friend in genealogy, and I'm very excited to introduce this first session of our Scotland Genealogy Study Group. We've got a pretty exciting day lined up, and our instructor is a very experienced person when it comes to doing British research. Her name is Claire Brissenbanks, and if you have followed Old Mert's blog, you'll see the link to finding out more about Claire. Claire, thank you for joining us. How many years did you work the British Reference Desk at the Family History Library in Salt Lake City, Utah?
About 6 years on the British reference and 8 years on U.S. altogether because I was a sub for U.S., but 6 years for the British.
Wow, that's pretty darn incredible. So what I've done, folks, well, first of all, you have to know that Claire and I are good personal friends. I've cried on her shoulder. She's cried on mine. I visited her in Missouri. It's so sad she moved away. And we really are missing her here in Salt Lake at the Family History Library. But I got the best person in the world that I knew for Scottish research to join us. She's well accustomed to doing this type of online classroom instruction. Claire, where are you currently teaching? And are you off for the summer? What's happening in your teaching schedule?
Right now I teach at BYU, Idaho, the family history course. They have an associate's degree, and I'm teaching that right now. I know I've got a couple of I got more classes coming as the year progresses. They're hoping to actually make it into at some point maybe a bachelor degree, but right now it's associate's degree. And the pathway students from BYU also come into this. And it's the part that I'm teaching is the advanced section, and these students are fabulous. We are so fortunate. We have a whole new generation of genealogists coming up. It's fantastic.
Well, and we should mention that these fantastic students are coming to you virtually because you live in Missouri, very close to the Mid-Continent Library. You took me there when we visited, me and Mr. Mert, and you and Mr. Banks. And he really is Mr. Banks, and so and your students could be anywhere.
Yeah, we have them from all over California. Some are in Canada. I never know, but
yes,
just in my one class, it's so big they split it into two. We have over 70 students in that one class.
Wow. Okay. Well, let me mention that we do have a few more people on the panel, and then we're going to dive in to Scotland. I don't know if we're parachuting in or whatever, but anyway, we do have Cousin Russ there on standby, and he's going to bring your comments in. Claire, what was that question we wanted to ask people so they'll have a chance to type it, and then Cousin Russ can bring it in. Then I'll introduce the panel.
Okay, what we want to know is when do they think that their individual ancestor came in from Scotland into the United States,
or where else? They didn't all come here,
or wherever they came from, whether it was Canada or New Zealand, Australia. When did they leave, and where did they settle?
Yes, okay. So folks, if you would type that in comments, and we'll kind of have a feeling for where your people came from. Now, in the meantime, well, to give you a chance to type all that, Ed, you are in the Netherlands, I understand, but you have Scottish ancestry. Where did your people go, and about what time period?
Okay, my great-great-grandfather was born in Scotland, and he and his family moved with other close family members up to the Orkneys for a while, and then from the Orkneys his brother departed and left for Canada, and my great-great-grandfather came back down through the borders and back down to actually the Northumberland area.
And Northumberland would then be in England, is that correct?
Yep, that's right on the Scottish border, basically. And then his son actually went over to Canada after that.
Okay, so we have a very interesting migration pattern for your family.
Yep.
All right, now I notice we also have another new person here today, and the panel is open. It'll just be me, Russ, and Claire, our instructor, but you can come and go as you feel comfortable. Patty, I've got the camera on you. I see your kitty cat picture in the background. Tell me where your Scottish ancestors ended up settling and what time do you think they left Scotland?
Um, I'm not sure when.
Okay.
I'm not sure. I have some inklings, but I'm not positive.
Okay. So you're thinking 1800s or
1700s.
1700s. Okay. David Robesson, my favorite Frenchman.
Your favorite Irish Frenchman.
Yes, I know you.
Yeah. Um,
Where are your people from?
well, this particular line, James Dixon, is from Scotland. To my best of my knowledge, he's from Scotland, and that's in the early 1800s. He was married to Mary Jane McCallum, and as far as I know, they showed up in Cornwall, Ontario, in the about 1840, 1845, in that general time frame. Actually, I think he had a daughter born in Ontario, I think around 1839.
Okay.
And then
yes.
my own grandfather came down to the U.S. in the early 1900s.
Okay, man, you Scottish people really get around. We've got something from the community. Let's see what we've got.
We've got a number. Gloria says 1818 and 1826 from Penshire to
Pershire?
whatever it is, to White County, Illinois, and we've got another one from Billy Wallace, who says mine came over in the late 1700s, early 1800s to the present day. They settled all over the States and Canada. And I got another one coming in from Marion, Scotland to Nova Scotia, about 1834, Nova Scotia to the U.S. about 1841, coal mining.
Ooh, that sounds like a push-pull factor. Oh, another one.
I got a bunch of them. Joy says mine left Scotland late 1700s to early 1800s. From the Hebrides, whatever it is,
How
islands.
do you say that?
It's
Hebrides?
the Hebrides.
Yes, okay.
Yeah.
And went to Prince Edward Island in Canada. Our friend Molly says early 1800s, McKinley to Pennsylvania, also McDonald to North Carolina in the early 1700s.
Wow. And we do have a lot of people, Cousin Russ, who are watching from the community. So this topic is very interesting. Claire, there's a reason why we, aside from the fact we want to know, but that we really had a reason to ask people, where did their folks end up settling? The ones that they suspect came from Scotland. And can you explain a little bit, and let's just dive in as to where we should start?
Well, the problem that most people have is they jump. How do they get from the United States or wherever country, Canada, whatever, and get across the pond back to Scotland? And so there's the Highlanders and the Lowlanders, and usually the Highlanders settled in the farming areas in the upper parts of Canada, wherever there was land available to house or homestead their families and things like that. The lowlanders tended to stay towards the cities, and so we need to remember that when you're doing your research. Also, a lot of the lowlanders came over during the colonies to help out with colonizing the United States or parts of Canada. And so it helps to know the time period to know where to go for the record sets. Again, it always goes back to the record sets.
Mm-hmm. So if I suddenly had a clue from an online family tree or some note that I got from my grandmother, she's written out pedigree charts and family group sheets, believe it or not, my real grandma Mert. But if it just says Scotland, I can't I can't do Scottish research without looking here first and seeing what records have survived. Is that true?
That is true. We do. Hopefully they would have some sort of indication as to where in Scotland they were from, whether they were Highlanders or Lowlanders. Scottish customs actually have come over to the different countries that they settled in a big way. When I went to Scotland and stayed there, I've been there a couple of times, and I have heard, and I quote, many times from the Scots will say, "You Americans are more Scottish than us Scottish people here," because of the traditions. We have the Scottish Highland Games. We have very much into learning the different clans, learning the customs. It's really important that we have that sense of identity, because remember that America is just a melting pot.
Well, and let's start at the beginning. And you have created a worksheet, not unlike the one that Cousin Russ created. And so I'm going to share my screen. We're going to talk a little bit about that. Because we're going to add to this as we have done in the past. Let me share my screen, and I can do this thing. We're good at this. Alrighty, there we go. So the first screen looks the same. If you do not understand the research cycle, we just completed 20 different sessions, hour-long sessions on beginning genealogy study group type concepts. That was incredible. Now this is the record selection table for Scotland, but it looks pretty familiar. Where did you get this?
I put the link at the bottom. It comes from the Family Search Wiki, and it's an excellent research guide. I think that's the best thing you could go for, is to start with this, because they don't miss anything, and it's still a very good path to follow as far as what you're looking for.
All right. So so that link is down here on the second tab, folks. Cousin Russ has shared that link with you. If you step away from your computer, please mute your video. If you have someone come in the room, please mute your video or mute your audio. So now we're looking at the Scottish record selection table. Now, is this what you would refer people to, these types of resources, when they would come to the British Reference Desk at the Family History Library and they had questions about Scottish ancestry?
Right at first, when they first come in, I would establish making sure that they got everything that they needed to within the United States before we stepped and crossed over in the pond.
Oh, I've also heard, now I do England and Germanic research. I say that because my people were early and they were Germanic states. It wasn't Germany like we know of it today. And you need to know that specific town, and the indication of that specific town, for instance, now in Scotland, is going to be in records that have survived here, hopefully.
Correct. And lots of times it'll be in the Declaration of Intention to become a United States citizen, or if they were naturalized in Canada or wherever they landed.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's a lot of Scots in Canada.
All right, so let's explore just a little bit further. And remember, folks, this is only our first of 13 sessions. That's a lot of sessions to go through here. Let me get my mouse down here. There's the link so that you can get to more information. It's at the bottom of that second tab to give the source. It's actually a source citation, Miss Claire. I love it. Now, here's some family search links of those same categories. Then you started creating a selection of websites that you like to use when it comes to Scottish research, and there's the links. And I see a lot of things that Scotland's people, I'm sure that's just one of the websites we'll be looking at. So where should we, go ahead and talk with me about the next topic on your, just take it away, Claire, is what I should say.
Okay, well, I think the first thing we need to do is to find out, if they became a citizen or where they settled. And we need to understand that about the individuals. Now, I noticed that there were some that settled in Canada, some that settled in the 1800s. And so really it's the record sets that we have to start with more towards the 1900s.
Okay.
And Stephen Morse's website down the bottom there, where you look at for Ellis Island,
Yes.
to where they came in, would help as far as trying to find an ancestor that that came in to Scotland, from Scotland into the United States. Fold 3 has the records from the 1895. I think I put Fold 3 in there.
Yes.
And so those are the actual records where they actually left Glasgow or Edinburgh to go into wherever they were going. Go ahead.
All right, let me ask this question. I heard that if they came from England, and I'm thinking Scotland as well, and went to Canada, that they didn't need to be a naturalized citizen of Canada because it was part of the British Empire. Is that correct or incorrect? Is the same true?
I believe that's correct.
All right. So, and is that possibly true for Australia?
That I don't know. I'll have to find that out.
All
They
right.
probably didn't have to be an Australian citizen because it's all part of the UK.
Right. So when we're talking about naturalization records as a resource to possibly find the town of origin, that really applies most specifically to the United States.
Correct. Just the United States in that case, yes. Unless it was another country altogether.
Okay, we're all right. So I'm hearing from Molly that the link says we have to have permission to see it. So, folks, here's what we're going to do on that research outline that in Google's Docs. After today's presentation, I'll have Claire go in and make it so that anyone can view it.
With the link.
With the link. That's the option. Thank you, Russ, or Molly, for letting us know. All right. So keep talking to me because I want to dive into this a little bit more.
Okay. Which part do you want to dive into? The naturalization, or you want to dive into following the actual record selection table?
I have a question. Can I ask a question?
You may.
It would appear to me that there's a piece of information that I would also like to know besides a time frame and where, and I'm thinking where they landed in the States. I am wondering if occupation that they have in the States is important to know and understand when trying to cross the pond.
It is very important, occupation, very important. Like, I think one of the people said something about coal mining, and so they would they naturally would be gravitating to where there were coal mines.
What's the difference between a Highlander and a Lowlander? I don't know what those terms mean.
Go put that into Wikipedia. Has a great article, and I put that in the actual spreadsheet. So you should be able to click on that if you scroll to the links section.
Okay.
I did put that in there. Valuable information there. Might take a moment to bring that up.
Okay. Oh, the clans, lowlands, highlands.
There's one there on Wikipedia. It's by Wikipedia. It's the second one, I think. The third one down. Let me go look myself.
All right.
Okay. It would be the one that is where it says lowland, clans, lowlands, and highlands.
Oh, that's where I was. All right, I'll pull it up. And I will share my screen so we can discuss it. So tell me what it means, and I'll pull up the article. Okay. Go ahead.
I can't see it yet.
Okay, no, that's fine. You can speak to me with.
Oh, okay. You want to click on the link? Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
All right, and somebody's got an echo. So when I'm speaking, I'm hearing an echo, and that's a little frustrating. So somebody needs to check their link on their headset. Okay, here we are. It should be coming up. Okay, map and clans of Scotland. Okay.
So this is this is where the actual last names. That's probably the wrong link. I do apologize.
It is. It's okay.
But we can talk about this. This is actually shows where a lot of the clans actually lived. So if your last name was Ross, if your last name was Mackenzie, if your last name was Campbell, those are the areas that you might want to look into to find your ancestors.
All right.
This is a fabulous.
So this is really different from something that we do in U.S. research. We can't just say that the Gordons tended to come from here versus the McLeods are out here on this island. Did people tend in Scotland to want, to stay together?
They did, even if they didn't have the same last name. There's a lot of, if you look up, I did provide a link in there from Electric Scotland, which talks about the different septs, and that's SEPT. That's meaning that they've accepted other families. This actually shows you the divide between the highlands and the lowlands, and
so
that's
is this a geographical thing?
Yep.
That we're responding to? Okay. So I mean, I know we've written it on the map here. Go away. But what you're saying is this literally is a lower. It's closer to sea level, and so but you're saying the Highlanders are farmers and the Lowlanders are more city or town dwellers.
Right. You have, of course, you have a mixture, but that's usually the Highlanders tended to stand in the highlands in the United States when they came over, and so they tended in the upper parts of the United States where the land was similar. So they're trying to recreate their home environment in another country.
Okay, I get that. All right.
Can we ask the community for that? If they have their family, do they know that if they did that? That would be helpful to ask the community that.
Well, yes. Are you aware, folks, if you could give Cousin Russ the heads up on that in comments, do you know the occupation of your ancestors in their country of settlement? Now, that's going to kind of be different for you, Ed, because your people came later rather than this earlier group. What about the occupation of what was the push factor to get your ancestor out of Scotland, and what was a pull factor to have them come across into England here in this little border area?
It appears as though they actually moved up to the Orkney Islands from the Scottish borders area, and they were farmers. And then some of the family moved from the Orkneys to Canada, obviously looking for fresh new farmland. And the other part of the family moved down sort of towards retirement age, and some of them became miners.
Okay. All right. Let me ask you this. My understanding in England is that land became scarce, and so you wanted to go to fresh new farmland. Am I accurate in that thinking, Claire?
That is correct. The immigration from Scotland to Canada was a better experience. The British government was not as much against that as they would be against them going to the United States, because we're staying in the same United Kingdom.
Okay.
So you got to think about that. They're not losing their citizens; they're just going to a different section in the same kingdom.
Okay. You got a comment from the community, Cousin Russ, on this.
Would you read it, please? I got other things
Yes.
going on.
Okay, Highlanders were more hill farmers, as there wasn't so much flat arable land there. Yeah, that's how I'm thinking of Highlanders, and that's why I was confused about it. And I think it's good that you mentioned that, Billy, because I'm looking for things out on the alluvial plain where the good topsoil washes off the mountains and kind of spreads out in the valley below, and that's where the most fertile soil would be for farming. Of course, the other thing is it's a different kind of there's multiple parts of agriculture, and so agriculture has to do with not only farming but cattle, and I typically think of sheep and wool. And tell me if I'm right on that, because basically, Claire, what I'm trying to do is take what I know and compare and contrast what I know with what I'm supposing, and I may be totally off base regarding
No, you're
Scotland.
you're not off base. You're not off base at all. What's interesting is perhaps maybe we need to also discuss, well, how did they come in? Where did they come in when they left Scotland? What ports would it be? Because whenever someone's looking, you need to try to find out, well, how did they get there? What areas did they come into when they landed from in Canada? There's like 5 or 6 different ports. I mean, you know, there's Prince Edward Island, there's Charlottetown, there's different places that they would arrive in Canada.
All
So
right, now,
does anyone in the community know the areas that they actually came in? Did they stay there or migrate west?
all right, now Dave had a question to pose to the community about subsidies. You want to talk about that, Dave? David?
I read this somewhere, and it's one of those things, these little facts that you keep in the back of your mind, but I just don't remember where I read it. But it seems to me that I read somewhere where the British government would subsidize passage to Canada, perhaps even with land bounties, to encourage settlement of Canada, as opposed to allowing people to move out to the United States. And I can't find any documentation for that. I can't find any supporting information.
And now we have another thing going on. Russ is bringing in a comment from Billy Wallace. You want me to read that one?
Yeah. Yes, please.
Okay. In the 18th and 19th century, the biggest move was due to the Highland clearances. So was this like a pogrom of sorts?
It was a pogrom of sorts. It was a really sad time in the history. They wanted to clear the land from farming and make it sheep's, to raise sheep, because it was more profitable. And so what would happen is they would come in and they literally would clear the land. So they would remove the individuals living in the homes that they were in, which were not very extravagant homes, maybe just simple log cabins or in thatched roofs, very small homes, and they would literally take the people out of them and burn the structure down, and then they had a choice of where to be moved to, and lots of them moved to Canada.
So is this in a time period when Scotland, when England was trying to move people into Scotland to take over that property so that it could be more English as opposed to Scottish? Is that part of this?
They wanted to help to populate and migrate west. There were government land grants. There were commercial companies that were involved in providing monies. That's what David was indicating. And there are trading companies that actually trade unions that would provide monies to help the people to settle those areas. Yes.
All right, and Billy has another comment. Billy, I think we need to get him a different computer or something so he can get down with this.
Yeah, Billy says British people never needed permission to travel to another territory and so on as long as it was under the British Crown control.
Okay, so these are just very different research challenges or historical context challenges for Old Mert here, because I don't do this kind of research. So it really is refreshing for me to get an overview of the historical context. You've got one more comment from Billy, our unofficial official panelist.
Billy says, yes, subsidized passage was a common event even into the 1960s, which was £5 to Australia.
That is totally incredible.
That brings up a question. Our discussion is from Scotland to the colonies or to the United States. Claire, where else did someone leaving Scotland go to? Is it just the States and Canada, or are there other places?
They could go to Australia. They went to South Africa. Were the other areas that they could go to, or even New Zealand, but a lot of them chose to go to Canada. The Highlanders did, because that was so close to their own area, what they were comfortable in. I have a couple of charts that I could share for United States, but since you asked about the other, then those are the different other places that they would go to.
Okay. Well, while you're preparing to share that screen, let me tell you that it's going to be really important for you all to have a copy of Claire's research outline. And from time to time, we're going to be adding more links to that tab. So yes, today you can download it or copy it. You download it and put it on your hard drive, and then upload it and put it over in your Google Drive so that you can edit it as well. But what I found during our beginning genealogy study group, when Cousin Russ would add things to it, I'd miss it because I had downloaded an earlier version of the worksheet. I have to remember what to say. It's not an Excel worksheet, is it, Cousin Russ? So
Google
you're going to, huh?
Google Sheets.
It's a Google sheet. I can say it. Okay. So keep that in mind, folks, that you may download it, work with it, but you may also want to download it again later as we add more links that come up in our conversation. Admittedly, Claire has an agenda. And our goal for today is to realize that there are going to be many ports of departure, certain ports of departure, and multiple ports of arrival throughout the world, whether it's part of the British Empire, etc. What have you got on your screen right now, Claire? Let's look at that.
Okay, this is a chart. Can you get it up there?
Yeah, I got it.
Okay, this is a chart on showing the immigration to the United States between 1820 and 1950. Look at the total of number of people over, and this is from the census years. This was put together by this Roland Tappan, and a total of over 80,000 people right there between that.
Well, yeah, I guess if we had 87,000 come over between 1871 and 1880, I think there's a couple more zeros on that.
Oh, probably, yeah, I probably should have added that.
139, yeah.
But seriously, there's a lot of people that came here specifically over this time period.
All right, show us some more of your slides. Those look interesting.
Oh yeah, this is the number of Scottish that were born in the United States between 1850 and 1950. So they came here, they settled, and then they were different individuals, and that's over 2 million people.
So these are then the first of their family to be born here, as opposed to their parents came over, settled, and then these children are born, and just in that 100-year time period, it's practically 24 million people.
That's right.
2 million. Oh, great. We're doing great on the math, but we're getting there. Okay, what's your next slide? This looks interesting.
Okay, so this is where when they arrive here, this is where the Gaelic-speaking tended to settle in the North American frontier, and then they stayed in.
So is that North American frontier?
That would be the upper part of the United States.
Okay, and how about into Canada?
Yeah, it says right here. It says that in the 1790 U.S. Census shows the Mohawk Valley of New York, Pennsylvania.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And so you got to understand they stayed and they settled. Some of them did settle in those 13 original colonies too.
In that early time period, prior to the 1790 U.S. Census, I'm remembering from my German research that the English people, the people from England, really like to have the Germans and the Scottish people as a buffer zone inland between the English homes and plantations and farms and townhouses and all that, and where the Indians lived farther to the west. And am I thinking that is correct, and that's what that fourth bullet point is describing?
That is correct, because these Highlanders were great as far as defending their lands, and so they were great military. Not really legitimately military, but they were protectors of their environment, and they protected their family, and they were used to protecting the clans. Remember, the clans had lots and lots of members, not just the one family. They had multiple members.
So different seps, S-E-P-T.
Yeah.
S. Yes. I think in Albion Seed by David Hackett Fisher, there's a description of those that came from the Midlands, which it represents a little bit, 100 years before, what what Ed's people did, coming across the border and then settling in the Midlands area. That they were feisty people, and they believed in power to the people, putting that in 20th century vernacular. Anyway, good. Okay.
Now, this is where David was talking about here, where this is what they call a patent. So 472 people immigrated in between 1738 to 1740. They were offered 1,000 acres of land for every adult, plus 500 acres for each child, with a paid passage. So see, that's where this is how they helped to settle the area. And it's just a tremendous way to bring in the people. And this was all part of the upper state of New York, which is also close to the Canadian border.
I would give my eye teeth to have 1,000 acres of land, and then 500. Well, that'd be husband and wife. They'd get 2,000 for every adult. Husband and wife, there's 2,000. Say you have 5 kids, which was normal. That's an incredible amount of property that was being given away in that patent.
I agree. And see, look at these are the This is the example of the names, so you can actually pull up and find out who got what. And this is a map that shows what they did. This is like a plat map.
Yeah.
Only it's like the township of Argyle, and so it shows you. If we were to blow it up, you could see who got what land and where they actually settled.
Oh my heavens, that's incredible. Okay, I would that I was Scottish. Gosh.
So maybe we could ask the community, do they have any members or anybody in the community that were part of descendants of some of this?
Yes, from the Argyle patent, which is in upstate
New York. Or from
another.
There were multiple patents, so that's just one of them.
All right, let's see. We have another comment from somebody in the community. Russ, you want me to read it?
No, I got it. I've got it.
Okay, good.
Barbara says the Loyalists in upstate New York all left. They resettled in Canada and were given land for their service to the crown. Of course, they had to clear the land and start all over. There's a lot of comments that I've tried to bring in, but probably won't be able to. There's a lot of links, so please, when the recording is over, go back and read. There's a lot of great information in the community, and I'm still going to try to bring some in. But
okay, well, Claire, let me mention this. So it sounds like these people in upstate New York on the Argyle patent, if they decided to remain loyal to the crown during the Revolutionary War, where U.S. was gaining independence from the crown, if they had fought on the British side, these Scottish people, they would have to leave, wouldn't they? There was that great migration. I can't use that term. That migration of loyalists to Canada. And that may be a migration pattern that some of our class participants' ancestors experienced. All right, let's forget about the lower third in any directions, because it keeps coming up and I'm having a hard time concentrating. There. Okay, Claire, so let's go back to your slides if you're ready.
Oh, yeah, I can do that. I did want to mention that many people were not in favor of the war. They didn't want to participate, and so they did go up to Canada.
Oh, okay.
That is a real true statement. This here is on Roots Web. It provides a listing of all the people of the grantees, and it gives a little bit more information than what that little map was. But the map is also very helpful, and I can save that as a JPEG and put that in that document. I think that might be helpful to the individuals.
Okay.
Now, one of the great authors is David Dobson. He is just a fabulous individual that has a tremendous amount of prolific writer of gathering of different documents and books that help to find people. He's just a fabulous individual. This is from the Family History Library catalog. Notice this says the Aberdeen shipping 1751 to 1753. then, you know, as you go on through here, these are all about the individuals. Dundee Shipping, 1760. The Colonist in America, 1615 to 1815. This covers some of the time period that some of those in the community were talking about. So I think it's just fabulous that they need to realize that there were lots and lots of push-pull factors that brought them here.
All right, well, this is a normal thing to be doing, folks, where we look for what has previously been compiled for clues about that migration pattern for an ancestor. And I'm going to show you how Claire got to Dobson's work here. I am at familysearch.org. You can see that on my screen. And let me pull this up, get my mouse down here. I'm getting good at doing my Mac. Okay, and we click search and we go to the catalog. I'm not going to look at historical records. I'm going to go to the catalog. And remember, this is all in that category of providing historical context. When you look to a reasonable author, now what was his first name, please?
David?
Oh, David. I couldn't remember for sure.
We just have to think of David.
Yeah, I do. All right, so we're going to look for titles. I knew Dobson was a compiler of well-regarded Scottish prints, and here he is, and there's 138.
Yep.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, the Burgess Rolls of Fife, Perth, Barbados and Scotland links, American Vital Records from Gentleman's Magazine. I mean, this guy was busy. We're busy, Cousin Russ, doing Hangouts on Air. He was busy doing writing books about Scottish research, something about the Huguenot and Scottish links, hearth tax records for the Borough of Dundee, 1691. So this is oh my gosh, the Mariners of the Lothians. I'm not sure if I said that right, Billy Wallace. The people of Cupar. Show more. There's even 7 more. The people of Eastern Perthshire. Perth. Sure.
It is Perthshire.
It is. I never know what to say.
That's okay. You're fine.
Yes. So we. You know, you don't always turn to what's written up in a book, do we, Cousin Russ or Claire? but sometimes we come across a valuable resource like the work of Mr. Dobson, and we love it.
Carrie just put a link to that in the community a minute ago. Thanks,
great.
Carrie.
All right.
Okay. I do have an example of what some of his writings, what kind of books his looks like. If you skip to my screen for a moment, I just show you one of the moments, show you just something of what you get if you take the time to look up his publications. I think it's a good thing. Let me go to my screen share.
We had it.
Oh, I know. I don't know where it went. But there it is.
Okay. We had it on the screen. It'll come back to us.
It'll come back.
Come back.
Okay, so notice it says here, this is Scots Abroad, 1650 to 1900, Part 1. It actually provides you with the name of the person and where they settled and what they did.
Okay.
That's just one of all, you know, you saw over 178 publications.
All right, and that little thing in a bracket at the end of each entry must be the source citation for it, and that the reference to what that code is would be at the beginning of that particular volume.
Yes, it would be. He has all of that easily in. He's just a fabulous, you know, nothing is unsighted, nothing. He makes a note of where everything came in.
So he's kind of like the P. William Philby, but for Scotland.
Right. We do. We do have another individual that's very good also. His name is Donald White, Whyte, and he's also done some interesting Scottish stuff that might be helpful to you. And again, you showed individuals on how to get to Family Search and type in the name, and you get this information. And then this is what his looks like. And so this is Scottish immigrants to the United States, and he's got the name of the person. This one was a prisoner. This is a prisoner. So, you know, this one here's age 31. And again, like you said, there's a reference at the end to show where it came from.
And that key reference is found at the beginning. This is at the beginning of that volume. And so that's why it's so important, folks, to not only take a picture, you know, a digital image of the page that may mention your ancestor, but also the title page, copyright page, and the pages. I copy all those front pages anyway, whether it's just to reference 3170, for instance, that top entry, because I want to know what kind of things have been written about this topic. Go ahead, Claire.
Well, the next part, I guess, would be, well, where did they settle? You know, what part of the United States? Where did they migrate to? And so these are some of the areas that would actually very, very helpful for people. I don't know. It would be interesting to hear from the community. I know a lot of them settled in parts of Canada, and so we need to talk about that also. But this part would be just mostly for the United States. But what I thought was interesting, that the gold rush of 1849 brought the Scots to California as the very first non-Spanish speaking pioneers, and I think that's fabulous.
I didn't even realize that they were part of that gold rush. I wasn't thinking of, this isn't an ethnic group. Well, what is the definition of the word ethnic? I tend to think of like Native American as an ethnic group, and that really puts, it's really too inclusive. But when you look at the rich heritage of each of these folks, Scottish people, it's very distinct, and that they were part of that is interesting me. You have a comment, Cousin Russ, from the community already. Good.
Oh, I've got a lot of comments. Christy says, my ancestor William Swift left Scotland.
Swap.
I'm sorry. left Scotland. Left Scotland about 1920. Arrived in Canada. They lived there for a few years and immigrated to the U.S.
Yeah.
And Billy Wallace has a comment. It's worthwhile mentioning a lot of people went to Scotland, to Ireland, or England, then sailed there to the U.S., Canada, even though you could save money by sailing to another port.
All right. Okay, you got about 80% accuracy on that, but I get the point, what he's trying to say. And the point is well taken that, you know, our people that immigrated from Scotland or any other country, they put up, you know, they spent their life savings, they sold their property, or maybe were burned out, as you talk about in the clearances. And so if they could save a little bit of time by traveling to a major port in England, they're not saving time, they're spending time, but saving money that they didn't really have to get themselves there. And that can be a problem, can't it, Claire? Because I've looked at some passenger arrival records, a customs passenger list. Mitch, can you mute your mic, because we're getting an echo from you, dear, and it's hard for me to concentrate. And you know, old Mert here with the gray cells takes all I can to move your mouse up to the top. Move your mouse up to the top and you'll have that button. I'm sorry. Okay, where was it? Okay, so I have seen on a passenger arrival record that a person came from Liverpool. That's where the ship departed. It is not meaning that that is necessarily where my ancestor lived. The ancestor may have lived there for a year because they'd spend all their money trying to get to that port of departure. We're still getting the echo. Trying to figure out why that echo's happening. I will try to ignore it. It's just hard for my brain to do that. All right. It can be challenging, can't it, Russ? You got some more comments from the community, and thanks to Billy for telling me that I said Perthshire correctly. I need all the help I can get.
Okay. Linda says, my family has loyalists that lost New York lands, went to Canada, received land in Canada, along with daughter and Patriot son-in-law. Patriot traveled to Vermont all the time to receive Revolutionary War pension money.
That's kind of interesting. Let's go across the border to pick up our pension check and then back to Canada with the rest of the loyalists in the family. Okay. Claire, how did we do on our first session as far as getting to this point of being oriented to our research outline that you've provided to us? And we're going to stay with you and get you to change it so everybody can download it. And meeting our need to get an understanding of push factors, pushing them out of Scotland, and pull factors attracting them to the U.S. Do we need to deal with any more on those topics?
I think that we did cover it well. It would be nice if from the community, if they have any stories that they'd like to share as far as, in the comments section about adding, if they have any stories from the ancestors how they actually came here, where they settled, and why they came.
They're already there. They're already there.
That's wonderful.
Okay, all right, so let's see what they're saying, because we're getting some stuff from Billy Wallace.
That's wonderful.
See. Okay.
Billy says transport of the Scots in the U.S. and Canada was common sentence at various points in the 17th and 18th century.
All right, let's see what that means. That means that a common sentence means that had to do with that convicts being sentenced to having to leave the area and go to Australia. I'm familiar with that with England, but it looks like we're seeing that with the Scots as well. Let's just get them out of our neck of the woods and into another part of the kingdom. Okay, Russ?
Marion, my coal miners were married and baptized in Lanark, whatever, and the U.S., they went to some pretty rugged country in Appalachia, Western Maryland, and West Virginia. And I think that our friend David has a story to tell about James Dixon.
All right, Dave, tell us about that.
Oh, very quickly. He was a blacksmith by trade, along with many of his sons. But they, coming into Canada, they settled in a little village called Williamstown, near Cornwall, Ontario, which of course is right on Lake Erie, and they pretty much stayed in Canada for that one generation. But several of the Dixons went into the Southwest, some into Utah. I have a Mormon great uncle who ended up in Utah. But my own grandfather, my mom's dad, he came back and forth from Canada to the United States. I like to say dating, but he was courting my grandmother for 7 years before he finally made the commitment. But he did stay a Canadian citizen. Although he filed his intentions twice, once in 1918 and once in 1933, he remained a Canadian citizen. And fought in World War I as in the Canadian Expeditionary Forces. But he was in the heating and air conditioning business, which is not exactly blacksmithing, but his father was a blacksmith, and his grandfather, the immigrant, was a blacksmith as well.
Well, they didn't exactly have air conditioning to deal with for the grandfather. So I guess
let me say this about air conditioning. It's funny you should mention that. There's a picture of me, months old, in the early 50s. You can pick a number. But behind me is a sign that says Clement A. Dixon, Heating and Air Conditioning.
Wow.
Very early 50s.
That's pretty incredible.
Yeah.
Very incredible. Okay, Russ, we've got something from the community, and then I want to respond to this one, Russ.
Okay. Anna says, McBean from Scotland to New Hampshire in 1600s became Bean. Then my line went to Stansted County, Quebec. Also Mimos and Loudons who immigrated to Montreal mid-1800s.
All right, keep that up. I want to talk about that for a minute. Now, this is a decision that a family makes to become Bean instead of Mac. But I want to ask members of the panel, and you first, Claire, what's the difference between MAC and MC? Does that indicate lowland or highland, or that they're a sept of somebody bigger? I mean, why would they decide to do that? Whether to have MC Donald or MAC Donald? Do we know?
Actually, I just know that they're the son or the Mick is just the son or the daughter of. Like, you know, there are in the patronymics instead of patronymics.
Yeah.
That's all it is. And so the Mac Beans, I've done a lot of research on the Bean family.
Really?
Yeah, I did it for a client, and I'm still doing it. And the Mac Beans go, you know, right back into Scotland, a big, big clan. And so it was common for them to do that. Next week, I'm going to bring up about some of the other different things that happened to make them change their name, because you got to remember, England said you can't have your clans anymore. You can't wear your tartans anymore. You can't speak Gaelic anymore. So we'll talk about that next week.
All right. I thought Gaelic was an Irish thing. Am I incorrect on that?
It's Celtic.
Okay, all right. So they have the same ancient ancestors, it sounds like. 2 minutes, or you have 2 comments, Russ?
I think it's 2 minutes.
Okay, all right. Well, folks, I think we've done a great job for our introduction to Scottish records research. One of our goals from here on in, now that we've given you some bit of historical context, so now we're, is to do as Claire has said and start dealing with the names. You know, when a government decides to come in and burn your house, tells you what you can wear or not wear, tells you how you can speak or not speak, changes the naming patterns that are part of your heritage, that is a pogrom, and in all its ugliness. I'm thinking we're going to have a very interesting time discussing some more of that history. And then our next goal is, as we are discussing specific record groups that may be useful, Claire will be showing us examples of those record groups, an example of what a will looks like, or a hearth tax list, or what, I don't know. I don't know what they have I don't know from Scotland, as they say. But in order for you to benefit from taking this course, please do continue to give these comments back and forth, because we want to meet your needs as well as deal with incorporating the agenda that Claire has in mind for talking with us about effectively tracing your ancestors on the ground, with boots on the ground in Scotland. And our main thing was to hopefully find the place of origin in record groups that have survived here in the U.S. Something from the community to wrap this one up, Cousin Russ, and then we need our branding.
You bet. Irish Gaelic is slightly different from Scottish Gaelic.
Well, I can imagine that, because when I'm more familiar with Latin languages like Spanish, it's completely different. Mexican Spanish language specialists have to learn that it's very different from what you would speak down in Ecuador or over in Spain, even though it's all considered Spanish. So there are different, we see that. They do that in the South. Molly knows that her ancestors had different Southern accents and dialects and phrases. So folks, wow, what a great opening session we've had in our Scottish genealogy study group. Thank you, Claire, for being so prepared and giving us all kinds of ideas and starting this worksheet for us. Thank you to the members of the panel and the community. And at this point, there's nothing left to say. But on behalf of Claire and Cousin Russ, I'm Dear Myrtle, your friend in genealogy. Happy family tree climbing, everybody. That's a wrap.